Hello and welcome to Helping Students Manage Anxiety in the New Normal. And this is a mental health forum presented by the Wellness Center. I am Dr. Shantae Bassett, and I'm joined by my colleague Lou Ann Butteroni and Stacy Chen. So we're going to get started with the first slide. And we're just going to briefly go over what the purpose is for this mental health forum. So we're first going to identify the stressors related to the COVID-19 pandemic that may cause anxiety for our students. And then we're going to learn about the signs and symptoms of anxiety so that we can recognize them in our students. And lastly, learn strategies to help our students manage their anxiety. And there are also strategies that we can even apply for ourselves. So what happened? We all know by now. The COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in the following: abrupt changes and uncertainty. So we've experienced it as faculty and staff. One day we were in our offices, and the next day we were working remotely and trying to figure out how to navigate that. The sudden move to distance teaching and distance learning for our students, managing new technologies and ways of relating. So figuring out how to deliver classes for faculty members who have never offered online classes, managing meetings with students when we have never done it virtually before, etc. And coping with medical and economic, family, and physical stressors that might not have otherwise been experienced if we were not in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. So what is anxiety? Anxiety is defined as the body's natural response to stress. It's a feeling of fear or apprehension about what is to come. And I'll add that anxiety is a normal experience. It is a normal feeling that we all go through. But one thing that is important to know is that anxiety exists on a bell curve. So if you experience too little of it, you won't have enough motivation to function. If you experience too much of it, then you will be experiencing too much to the point where you will be crippled and not able to function. So you have to have just enough anxiety to push you to function, but not too much where you are gripped by anxiety and unable to move throughout your day. So how is anxiety related to COVID-19? These are just some of the questions that our students might be asking themselves. Will I or a loved one contract the COVID-19 virus? And of course, these are questions that are asked by anyone, not just our students. How will I adjust to our new normal? How will I adjust to taking classes online, meeting with my advisor online? How are my finances going to be affected? We have students who are essential workers. We have students who might not be working anymore because the establishment that they were working for is now closed. How are my academics going to be affected? How am I going to navigate my courses now that they're offered strictly online? Will I be able to graduate on time? These are questions that they might be asking. When will things return to normal? That's a question that everyone is asking. And will things return to normal? Some people have said that this is our new normal and that things will be virtual for a very long time going forward. So these are just some of the things. If they have come to your mind, there's a good chance that they have come to your students' minds as well. So signs and symptoms of anxiety can be broken down into 4 different categories. And this is by no means the only way that you can categorize the symptoms. But for the purposes of today's presentation, we're going to go with this model. So you have physical, emotional, cognitive, and behavioral. So some physical symptoms, a student might experience rapid heartbeat, might feel some prickling in their fingers. They might be restless, have an inability to kind of sit still. Those are some physical signs and symptoms of anxiety. Some emotional symptoms: the student might be anxious often. They might often report signs of worrying, ruminating thoughts. Speaking of thoughts, that would be under the cognitive category. always having thoughts that don't stop. So always thinking, probably not sleeping well because when they lay down, their mind is still going. Lack of concentration or difficulty concentrating, racing thoughts or unwanted thoughts. So having a lot of what if types of questions. Um, and behavioral. So hypervigilance, always being on edge. You might find that a student who's experiencing anxiety might be one of those prepare for the worst and hope for the best type of students. They might be irritable and often restless. So might be the student who gets up and walks away from the camera on WebEx or Zoom as you're offering classes. So those are just some of the things that you might see in a student who's anxious. And I'll also add that the things that I mentioned, if you see them by themselves, don't automatically assume that a student is anxious. If you have a student who is, let's say, having difficulty concentrating, that doesn't automatically mean that they're anxious. They could be distracted by a child who's in their home and who, is also doing distance learning. So you also want to take a number of things into account and look at the other factors. Not that you are charged with diagnosing, but if you know what a student is going through, then you are better equipped to point them in the right direction. So next, my colleague Luann is going to give you more information on how you can help your students.
Okay, thank you, Shantae. As you can see, this sudden and unexpected transition can impact us all emotionally, psychologically, and physically. The crisis of the pandemic has disrupted normal life for everyone, and students, as well as educators, parents, and children may be experiencing trauma at this time. I'm going to focus for the next few minutes on considerations for mitigating anxiety and trauma in the context of distance learning. I will share with you principles and strategies offered by two leading trauma-informed educators. I think that these ideas can be useful in helping students both in and out of the classroom to create a greater sense of safety and control. So 4 priorities for trauma-informed classrooms: predictability, flexibility, connection, and empowerment. Predictability. Loss of our normal life can create intense feelings of unpredictability, shock, and grief. Okay. We can assist students in gaining control over the structure of their day by helping them create routines. For example, a check-in video for students at the same time every day, or an opening activity such as a calming exercise. Flexibility. There are different paths up the mountain. Because of loss of control, inflexible teaching methods can trigger some students. Notice what students need and collaborate with them to find routines, resources, and strategies that will best support them. Connection. Relationships are key to resilience. Help students connect with each other, family, and their community. Help them feel connected to you by expressing your care, concern, and compassion. Empowerment. Trauma takes power from people. Rigid expectations and power struggles can create barriers to learning. Empower students through shared decision-making and authentic choice. Okay, next, what we're going to look at is some teaching strategies that can help support students during this time. And Stacy, you can go to the next slide and we'll do them individually, if that's okay. Okay, strategy 1, email regularly. Stay in touch with your students. Email your students to remind them that you are still there for them. Strategy 2, humanize yourself. Let students know how you are shifting your schedule to deal with the new situation and that change is part of life. Humanize yourself and make it casual and lighthearted. For example, you might talk about how in between reading their discussion posts, you decided to start your spring cleaning, which you've been putting off forever. Strategy 3, balancing rigor and support. Reflect on the notion of rigor and continue to challenge and support your students. We must we often must balance rigor and support, and this situation might be one where students will need more support than rigor. Establishing continuity doesn't necessarily mean that you increase the amount of work required of them. Some of us might be fixated on the rigor of the materials presented. Let's face it, given the circumstances, the rigor may suffer, and that's okay, considering the situation. Strategy 4, consider creating a community discussion board for students to share, or Stacy, okay, we're back on 4. Consider creating a community discussion board for students to share what is happening in their lives, especially given the stress, fear, and strains in these uncertain times. Strategy 5, try to use hopeful and optimistic language, such as when you come back to the college. This will help students look forward to coming back to our campus. Strategy 6, suggest a class WhatsApp group. Offer students the opportunity to exchange phone numbers, and for those who are interested, you might want to help them create a WhatsApp chat group. It can sometimes be difficult for our students to ask for a classmate's phone number. Strategy 7, create a safe space to discuss COVID-19 related concerns. In other words, don't ignore the elephant in the room. If possible, talk about COVID-19 and fear. This is also a good time to remind your students to consider the sources of their news and to be aware of the large amount of misinformation. Strategy 8, let students know you are there for them. Let your students know that you're there for them, and if they need help, to reach out to you. Let them know that you're in touch with counselors, mental health experts, college and community resources that can help them should they need someone to speak to. And strategy 9, most importantly, ask each of your students how you can help them. The Persian poet Rumi wrote, "Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there." Likewise, in times of uncertainty and unknowing, we can create a space where our students' voices and insights can illuminate the path we are carving out for them and for ourselves. Thank you. And now Stacy is going to go over tips to manage anxiety.
So the following tips that I'll be talking about can be applied to you as a faculty or staff member, as well as passed on to your students. And I'm going to go into detail for each of these 6 points. The first is acknowledge your feelings. One source of anxiety is when we don't acknowledge what we're really feeling. Our feelings get bottled up. We try to distract or avoid, and that can actually cause anxiety and depression symptoms. So it's important to take time to notice and express your feelings. Even right now, as I'm giving this presentation, I'd like to pause to do a little experiential exercise. And so I just want you to, if you feel comfortable, just to close your eyes for a moment and just notice any sensations that you feel physically right now. You can scan your body physically if you feel comfortable, and just notice if you feel relaxed or tense. If you feel any heaviness anywhere or lightness. Notice the temperature that you feel, hot or cold. And if you notice any sensation right now, maybe just take a moment to breathe into it. Take some breaths, breathing into that space where you feel the sensation. We're just observing the sensations that we're feeling right now without judgment, just welcoming any experience breathing. So thank you for taking part in that brief exercise. And what we just did together is we paid attention to the physical sensations in our body. And I bring this up because sometimes it's hard to know what we're feeling, and your students might have a hard time noticing what they're feeling. But when we notice the physical sensations, that can help us to get connected more with our body. And I just want to say that I encourage you as staff and faculty to do this for yourself. When doing it with students, it's important just to invite people, but to give people a choice, because sometimes connecting with the body could be triggering, so just to be sensitive to that. But for yourselves as faculty and staff, if you feel comfortable, I encourage you to take time to connect with yourselves. Help yourselves to connect more with your body and to notice what you're feeling. It's so important too to practice self-compassion instead of judgment. So often we can judge feelings as good or bad, especially feelings such as anger or anxiety, sadness, fear. And when we judge our feelings, it actually just causes more stress. So it's so important to practice self-compassion and to welcome feelings without judgment, and to do the same for our students. Some of the ways that might be helpful to express feelings is to journal, to talk with someone you trust, or express feelings through a creative endeavor. Tip number 2 is about breathing. Breathing is a powerful tool that everyone has access to, and it helps our body to relax. There are many exercises on breathing that help the body to relax that you can find on YouTube or on apps that focus on breathing or meditation. And I'm going to show a 5-minute YouTube video right now so that you can try this deep breathing exercise and possibly use it with your students.
Sometimes the brain goes in overdrive when you are fearful and nervous. Say right before a big test, or maybe when you see a bully. At that time, your breathing becomes really shallow. The jumpy monkey in your brain becomes in control. It starts to pump oxygen really fast so as to make you run away from that situation. At that time, it's important for you to take deep breaths so that Mr. Smarty Pants in your brain can take control. That's when the 4-7-8 breathing is helpful. 4-7-8 breathing is a lot deeper, and we breathe from our diaphragm. Imagine there's a balloon under your lungs, and every time you breathe in, the balloon gets bigger and bigger. And then you prick the balloon and let the air get out slowly as you exhale. The way you do this exercise is to breathe in deep for 4 seconds. Hold your breath for 7 seconds and exhale for 8 seconds. When you do this, imagine the balloon inflating and then slowly deflating. Curl the tip of your tongue up to touch the hard ridge behind your upper front teeth. If you can't curl it up, just touch the hard ridge behind your front teeth. Now, let's do the exercise. Sit up straight. You may or may not close your eyes. Curl your tongue and bring it to the back of front teeth. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathe out. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathe out. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathe out. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathe out. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathe out. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. At the end of the last cycle, relax and notice how you feel. Try to finish with an inner and outer smile. At the beginning, you may not be able to hold the breath for 7 seconds, and that's okay. Just keep trying and keep increasing your intervals. As you practice this exercise, you will notice you are getting calmer and are able to not let Jumpy Monkey ruin your mood. You will let Mr. Smarty Pants be the boss of your day. You will not run away, but will face the situation with wisdom and peace.
So if interested in recording this, it's called the 4-7-8 breathing exercise. Okay, so going back to tip number 3, pay attention to your thoughts. Identify and surrender what you cannot control and focus more on what you can control. So often our thoughts dwell on the things we can't control, and it can be helpful to write it down and to surrender that and to refocus on what is in our control. Think upon the things that you're grateful for or give you life. Some people find it helpful to keep a gratitude journal or make a short list at the end of the day for things that you're grateful for or moments in the day that gave you life. Practicing mindfulness. Pay attention to the present moment non-judgmentally to things as they are. So often our thoughts are focused on the past or the future. And sometimes we need to think about the past or the future, but a lot of times it's more helpful to stay in the present. In addition, focusing on your sensory experience is a great way to stop ruminating and to get out of our head. Tip number 4, maintain healthy activities and rhythms or structure. Try to eat healthy snacks or meals. Eating what we eat really makes a difference in how we feel. Stay hydrated. Exercise on a regular basis. Get enough sleep and maintain a regular sleep schedule. And do the things you enjoy and give you energy. Some of these things are basics, but they make such a huge difference. And by taking care of ourselves in these ways, there's a ripple effect, and it really helps our mental and emotional health. Tip number 5, set limits around news and social media. Keep boundaries that work for you, that keep you informed while not taking up most of your time and energy or draining you. Consider setting an alarm on your cell phone to help keep the boundary. And tip number 6, stay connected with others. Connect with supportive others, which can help bring a sense of comfort and stability. and move beyond texting and social media to more interpersonal communication, such as phone or video calls, that can still be very, very effective. So these are some tips that can be very helpful to practice as a faculty or staff member, and also to pass on and mention to your students when you're able to. And of course, you can always contact us at the Wellness Center, either going on the LaGuardia website or calling us. So we hope that this presentation was helpful for you today. We really encourage you to do good self-care as a faculty or staff member, because you matter too. And also, the more you take care of yourselves, the more you'll be able to support your students. And always feel free to contact us if you need to. Thanks for joining us, and have a great day.